details, like what is it? Because I mean, you have a general idea, but you don't really know exactly the facts of it. There are actually 3 types of accounting fraud. There's asset misapportionment, which is where your common theft of your cash or your forgery of checks, and that actually accounts for about 87% of fraud cases that are reported. And of all the cases, it's involved in about 91% of them. And then the next one is bribery and corruption, and that is your kickbacks, your manipulation of contracts, and your shell company schemes. And those account for about 30% of fraud cases. And then the final one is financial statement fraud. And financial statement fraud would be you're manipulating your gross income where it appears that your company is making a lot more money than what it actually is. All 3 of those fraud cases all have one party benefiting while the other party is being deceived and taken for. And once we know what fraud is, then we ask our question, well, who actually commits fraud? Well, the person that actually commits fraud, we don't really have a profile for exactly who is going to be the fraudster in your company. But we do have some statistics that show that about 85% of the people that actually commit fraud, they're actually first-time offenders. And 54% of them are between the ages of 31 and 45. We have been able to classify our fraud into 3 elements, and they're shown on the fraud triangle. You have your pressure, which is like your boss saying that he's going to fire you if you do not go along with this, or from like your bills piling up and you're having problems and you're trying to live beyond your means. Then you have your opportunity, which is it's there and you just took it and nobody was there to stop you, so you thought you'd get away with it. And then you have your rationalization, which is saying like, I need this, like nobody's gonna know, it's just this one time. And for a company, it's really important to understand these 3 elements of the fraud triangle, because once they can see what causes people to commit fraud, then they move into, well, what can I do to prevent it? And there are a bunch of controls that they can put in place. A few examples of that would be separation of duties, which you would not want one person in charge of handling your money and your accounts payable and receivable, because they would be able to disguise stealing money from you. And then another one would be you want to have auditors come in. You would want an auditing committee in your actual company that's looking over your books constantly. And then you would want board of directors in place that set the ethics for your company and are all about what your mission statement is. All of those controls are really important, and there's a lot other ones that can be put in place, but there's no just set formula that's going to completely prevent fraud from happening in your company. It can happen to anybody, and a few of those examples I have are the Bernie Madoff scandal, which he tricked investors out of $64.8 billion, and was the largest Ponzi scheme out of all of them. And then we have the Enron scandal, which shareholders lost $74 billion in their investments. And then you have the Health South scheme, which earnings numbers were inflated by $1.4 billion. All of these cases just show us that it's not just the small companies that are going to be susceptible to fraud. It's even the larger ones that have the personnel that they can space out their jobs, where not one person is in charge of just everything. And I feel like it's really important for especially college students coming into their jobs that you know that when you go into that company, there's a possibility that this could be going on, and it's important to be able to tell exactly what it is, how people get the justification for doing it, and how they can help prevent it. And because if you don't have the proper tools in place, or you don't have the proper knowledge, then you find yourself susceptible into falling into the trap of, oh, I'll just go along with this, or I have no idea what that is, or I'm just going to pretend that I don't know, and then the consequences of those actions can actually end you up in jail, and nobody wants to have that happen to them at all. So thank y'all for listening to me.